Well, I am going to speak about mangroves and fishes. This is the theme of the conference: conservation of mangroves, synergistic with the fish production. Mangroves are the only tall tree forest in the intertidal areas of tropical and subtropical coasts. So mangroves are the only tall tree forest in the intertidal areas of tropical and subtropical coasts. Mangroves are known as blue carbon forest, oceanic forest, tidal forest, coastal woodland. And the mangrove is the only blue carbon forest on the earth. Mangroves are marvel of nature, ecological wonder, scenic splendor. I love mangroves. I love mangroves. I heard my honeymoon trip only in Pichavaram mangrove forest. So I have a great love for mangroves. Mangroves are highly productive system. Mangrove biomass is greater than any other aquatic systems on the planet. Mangroves are biologically diverse. It's because of habitat diversity, forest vegetation, mudflats, and water bodies. Since mangroves are located between land and sea, mangroves support both terrestrial and marine organisms. Therefore, mangroves are biologically diverse. Mangroves are unique in adaptations. No other ecosystems on the earth have such adaptations. Viviparous germination. Seeds are germinating in the mother plant itself. Young plants are produced by the mangroves, and the leaves are vomiting salts, salt to vomiting leaves, arching roots above the ground, breathing roots above the ground, air breathing crabs, and amphibious fish, mud dancing fishes. So breathtaking beauty. Again, I love mangroves. Mangroves support fishes. No mangroves, no prawn. No mangroves, no crabs. No forest on land, no fish in the sea. Mangroves serve as feeding, breeding, and nursery grounds for prawns, crab, mollusks, fish, birds, reptiles, and mammals. And we conducted an experiment. Do the mangroves attract shrimps? So we collected the mangrove leaf litter, and then we kept it in the litter bag like this. And this setup was placed in the intertidal mangrove area. And every day we collected how many shrimps were attracted towards the decomposing leaf litter. And also we analyzed the protein nitrogen in the decomposing leaf litter. We analyzed the bacterial count in the decomposing leaf litter. This is the result. After 30 days, there is a sharp increase in the number of zonal shrimps towards the decomposing leaf litter. After 30 days, there is a sharp increase in the total protein nitrogen in the decomposing leaf litter. After 30 days, there is a sharp increase in the nitrogen fixing bacteria in the decomposing leaf litter. So therefore, the number of zonal shrimps attracted are related to the total protein nitrogen and the nitrogen fixing bacteria present in the decomposing mangrove litter. Not only nitrogen-fixing bacteria, lactobacilli, yeast, and thrustochitrid are the beneficial bacteria abundantly present in the mangrove environment. Say, for example, thrustochitrid. This is a obligate marine fungi like protist. This organism produces polyunsaturated fatty acid, and the DHA content is 40% of total fatty acids. No other organism is producing this much of DHA. And the DHA is very important for brain growth and brain development. And we tested this microbe thrustochitrid and found it is capable of boosting the growth of aquaculture species, especially sea bass, Latis calcarifer. And therefore, mangroves are microbial paradise. Not only that, the mangroves serve as aqua-clinic, and the mangroves produce enormous amount of phenolics. And these phenolics activate the blood cell granular hemocyte of shrimps and crab. When they are activating the blood cell, the enzyme phenol oxidase is synthesized, and the phenol oxidase enzyme is leached out of the blood cell. So this enzyme acts upon phenols, and the phenol is converted into quinone, and the quinone is further converted into melanin. Melanin is a black substance. And quinone and melanin, they are deadly toxic to microorganisms. So therefore, whatever pathogenic microorganisms entering into shrimps and crabs, they are killed by the quinone and melanins formed by the enzyme phenol oxidase in the blood cells of shrimps and crab. So defensive enzymes are produced for immunostimulation in the crustaceans. So mangroves serve as aqua-clinic. And there are three important coastal ecosystems: coral reef ecosystem, mangrove ecosystem, and seagrass ecosystem. And these are all very beautiful ecosystems. So that is why I have given the beautiful pictures of actress. So very beautiful coastal ecosystems, and the mangroves and seagrasses serve as nursery for the coral fishes. And after attaining the sub-adult stage, the coral fishes are moving to coral fishes are moving to coral reef ecosystem. We conducted an experiment whether mangroves support fishes in seagrasses and coral reefs. So we conducted an experiment in Gulf of Mannar area. We selected 5 different locations in the same seascape: mangrove sampling site, mangrove seagrass interface, seagrass alone, seagrass coral reef interface, and coral reef alone. So we selected 5 different sampling points, and then we analyzed the primary productivity in the water. We found the mangroves have got the maximum primary productivity, minimum in corals, intermediate in seagrasses. The same trend is true with bacterial counts: highest in mangroves, lowest in coral reef, and medium in the seagrass community. Similarly, benthic faunal counts, meofauna and macrofauna, highest in mangroves, lowest in corals, intermediate in seagrasses. So based on all these observations and experiments conducted by us, we conclude that the mangroves are producing enormous amount of litter, because mangrove is highly productive system as compared to many other forests. So annually, about 8 tons of litter is produced per hectare, and the litter is cut by the crabs and facilitating the microbial decomposition, especially by nitrogen fixing bacteria. So the decomposing organic matter is called detritus, and this detritus is rich in protein. It is an excellent feed for the zoanal fishes. Not only that, when the leaf litter is cut by the crabs, lot of phenolics are leaching out in addition to organic acids, because mangroves are rich in polyphenols like tannins. So when the phenols, polyphenols and organic acids are leached by cutting of leaf litter by the crabs, and these polyphenol and organic acids convert the insoluble iron to soluble iron. Iron is abundantly present in the mangrove environment, but it is insoluble form. Since it is insoluble form, it is not biologically available. So when it is converted into soluble form, the iron is available biologically. The same way during microbial decomposition, the nutrients are released like nitrogen and phosphorus. You see, for phytoplankton productivity and the algal photosynthesis, three components are important: nitrogen and phosphorus. These are all the major nutrients, inorganic nutrients, and the minor nutrient very much required for phytoplankton is iron. So when all the three components are abundantly available, the phytoplankton productivity is boosted up. When the phytoplankton productivity is higher, zooplankton productivity is also increased. Small fishes feeding on the zooplankton and the larger fishes feeding on the smaller fishes. So a food web is formed both in mangrove waters as well as in the offshore region. So we proved this with the fatty acid and stable isotope markers. 90% of marine organisms spend part of their life cycle in mangroves and coastal waters. Say, for example, this is Pineus merguensis. The larvae are migrating to the mangrove waters, and they are feeding on protein-rich detritus. Once they attain the subadult stage, they go back to the deep sea, getting married without dowry, caste, religion problem, releasing the young ones. The young ones are again coming to mangrove waters. So this life cycle is continued. Larval immigration followed by subadult immigration. It is continued in the mangrove region. And if the mangroves are destroyed and the coastal area is damaged, then the life cycle of the marine organisms will be affected. Why these organisms are coming to mangrove waters? Because of the food availability, because of the calm shelter, because of the protection against the predators. And moreover, the young ones require at least 40% protein, but 40% protein not available in the natural marine environment. but available in the mangrove detritus. The young ones require cholesterol. Cholesterol is the basis for larval hormone and larval development. But cholesterol cannot be synthesized by the crustaceans. But cholesterol is abundantly available in the form of phytosterols in the detritus. So for the two reasons, protein, for want of protein and cholesterol, the young ones are coming to mangrove waters. If you take life cycle of crab, the crab adults are tolerant to low salinity and varying salinity in the mangrove environment. So no problem for the adults. They are very happy to be in the mangroves. But the young ones cannot tolerate the low salinity or varying salinity. The young ones require stable salinity or high salinity. So therefore, the female crabs move to the offshore region, releasing the young ones, and the larval development takes place in the offshore region. After attaining megalopause stage, the first crab moves to the mangrove region. So the life cycle is continued in most of the brachyuran crabs. But however, the sesarmid group of crabs, they are completing their whole life cycle only in the mangrove region. And the mangrove is connected with two different water bodies, freshwater upstream water body and seawater body. And this water connectivity is very, very important for the coastal marine productivity, because the freshwater is bringing in nutrients and organic carbon to mangrove environment. Mangroves are providing nutrients and organic carbon to the seawater. So therefore, the productivity of the seawater is increased due to nutrient enrichment by the mangroves. In addition, anadromous fishes are migrating from seawater to freshwater through mangroves, and catadromous fish migrate from freshwater to seawater for breeding through mangroves. And if this water connectivity is affected, then the fish productivity is drastically declined. So mangrove and fish production, 75% of the tropical fishes are born within mangroves. 80% of the global fish catch are dependent on mangroves. Mangroves support 70% greater fishes than seagrasses and coral reefs. Fishes increase with mangrove forest area. When the forest area increases, the number of shrimp species increasing. In the same way, the extent of mangrove forest increases, the number of crab species also increasing. So therefore, the species diversity of commercial crustaceans, shrimps and crabs are increasing with the extent of mangrove forest cover. So we conducted an experiment how to stimulate the growth of the mangroves. So what we did was, we pruned the lower branches. When we pruned the lower branches of the mangroves are growing luxuriant and the mangrove growth is stimulated. So we suggested the pruning of lower shoot branches as a simple technique of stimulating mangrove growth. See, this is unpruned mangrove sapling and this is pruned mangrove sapling. You see the luxuriant growth of the pruned ones. So after pruning the shoot branches, what shall we do? What we did was, We put the pruned shoot branches in the water, and after 30 days or 20 to 30 days, there is an aggregation of fishes around this. So the branches are acting as the fish traps. So more than threefold increase in the fishes due to the branches kept in the water. This technique is called brush park technique for enhancing the fish catch in mangrove waters. This is followed in Kerala, India, Sri Lanka, Western Africa, brush park technique. There is a promising scope for mangrove water farming. So without disturbing mangroves, the aquaculture can be practiced. So we developed techniques and demonstrated to the self-help group of the local people. Very successful is crab fattening in the mangrove waters. And polychaete culture, rich in omega fatty acid, per kg costing about more than 2,000 rupees. And oyster, clam and mussel cultures and finfish culture in floating cages. Seaweed culture we demonstrated very successful in the mangrove waters. In addition to this, there are other mangrove related livelihood, blue jobs, ornamental fish culture, backyard hatcheries, seafood processing, developing value added products from trash fishes, then halophyte cultivation like aloe vera and edible Sesuvium portulacastrum, organic cultivation along the less saline areas. So in Tamil Nadu, the integrated mangrove aquaculture system is successfully demonstrated. So this is a mitochondrial design. So can you see a mitochondria-like structure? So you can have mangroves in the marginal regions and also in the peripheral region. And the mud flat can be occupied by the commercially valuable halophytes like Sesuvium portulacastrum. In the water body, the sea bass, crab fattening, mussel and clam cultures are being done in addition to seaweed cultivation. Very successful practice. You see, there are many integrated mangrove aquaculture system. If you look at this model, you have the mangrove in the center. Around the mangrove, you have the fish pond, a single inlet and outlet, mangrove in the center, around which you have the fish pond for fish culture. Model 2 is, you have the mangrove in the center, around which you have the fish pond. The water inlet and water outlet are separate. In the previous case, both are the same, but here the water inlet and outlet are different. Model 3, you have the mangroves in 3 platforms, not a continuous one, discontinuous mangrove plantation. Around these mangrove plantations, the fishes are cultivated. Single inlet and outlet. Model 4, one side you can have the mangrove platform, then the next side we can have the fish pond. So one water inlet and another one is the water outlet. Then model 5, the same like model 4, but here the central dike is constructed. Model 6, you have the fish pond. Around the fish pond, mangroves are planted. Mangroves are planted. Inlet and outlet, they are separate, and elevated bank in the center. And model 7, you have 3 separate fish culture ponds around which the mangroves are grown. Water inlet and outlet are the same. Model 8, you have the agriculture, rice, paddy, or coconut cultivation on an elevated embankment, around which the fish pond, mangroves are cultivated. Mangroves are cultivated. Model 9, this is the ideal silvo fishery model. You have 2 gates, water inlet, 2 water inlets, and then single water outlet. Mangrove in the center, and around the mangrove, you have the fish pond. And this is the most successful model, so in which mangroves are conserved, synergistic to the fish production. And can we achieve sustainable coastal aquaculture through mangrove restoration? The answer is yes. So mangrove restoration, low, medium, high. If the mangrove restoration is increased, the socio-economic benefits also increasing. Ecosystem service also increasing. Resilience to climate change also increasing. Ultimately, we can achieve sustainable coastal aquaculture. So the sustainable coastal aquaculture can be achieved through mangrove restoration. Mangroves provide excellent environment for the fishes. Say, for example, mangroves are the most intense carbon sink in the world. Mangroves sequester 5 times greater than any other upland forest. Very efficient. Mangroves are storing carbon for millions and millions of years. It is because the mangrove soil 80 to 90% is anaerobic. And because of the anaerobic condition, the carbon cannot be oxidized and efficiently stored in the mangrove sediments for millions and millions of years. Whereas in the other forests, carbon can be stored in the sediment for a few decades. I calculated Indian mangroves absorb 93 million tons of carbon dioxide daily. The economic value is 372 million US dollars. And the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is absorbing the heat energy and making the environment hot. But the mangrove, if they are present, the mangroves remove the atmospheric carbon dioxide and keeping the environment cool. So the cool environment, the fishes love to live. The same way, solar UV radiation. We measured solar UV radiation on the top of the canopy, 12.5 kilojoules per meter square per day. Under the canopy, the ultraviolet radiation was 0. So the mangrove forest under canopy region is free from ultraviolet radiation. The ultraviolet radiation, especially at the B range, is highly harmful to the shrimps and crabs because the head region, high stalk region, absorbing the ultraviolet UV radiation and harmful to the biological system. So it is mangroves are providing a congenial environment for the fishes. Mangroves provide clean water, reducing the water pollution, maintaining the water quality. The toxic heavy metals are converted into sulfides buried deep, in the soil in the mangrove system. So therefore, as long as mangroves are there, the toxic heavy metals are buried, and mangroves are serving as the sink for the toxic heavy metals. In addition, the bivalves, mussel, seaweeds present in the mangrove ecosystem absorbing the polluting nutrients. Also, the mangrove, that trap the sediments and strengthen the banks and deepening the creeks. Mangroves are protecting the coastal habitats from silt and polluted runoff. If the mangroves are intact, sediment is bound, so water is clear. So the sunlight will penetrate through, and the photosynthetic activity of seagrass, coral algae, and seaweeds are stimulated by the sufficient availability of sunlight. If the mangroves are deforested, the sediment will become loose and eroded. The water will become turbid due to siltation. So the sunlight cannot penetrate through efficiently. So photosynthetic organisms will be drastically affected. And the mangroves protect the underwater systems, coastal aquifers, from the seepage of the salt water from the sea. If you have mangroves, it will be like this. If you don't have mangroves, it will become like this. So mangroves provide shoreline protection against erosion. Mangroves provide shoreline protection against sea level rise. Mangroves give shoreline protection against extreme weather events, storms, flood surges, and tsunamis. If you have 1 hectare mangrove area, it can protect 243 people. So that is the efficiency of mangroves. So this is my success story. I involved my students in the mangrove conservation plantation work, and I proved the youth power is mightier than any other powers in the world. When I involved boys and girls together, the mangrove plantation was 100% successful. When I involved only boys or girls, it was not that much successful. So involving our youth for mangrove planting program is very important. So continuously we were monitoring the fish resources. After 10 years of this mangrove planting, the shrimp resources increased 120 times, crabs and fishes 4 times. And therefore the mangrove conservation synergistic to fish production, the theme of the conference. And the mangrove mitigated the human kill during tsunami 2004. And you see, just opposite to my department, there was a long boating jetty This was broken into pieces during tsunami. But the mangroves developed by my students were not affected. The concrete structure was broken into pieces, but not mangroves. But the mangroves developed by my students saved hundreds, thousands of people, thousands of human life and their properties. So after the tsunami, people rushed to my department, prostrated in front of me, and leaving their babies and crying out. Because of the mangroves developed by your students, our lives were saved. When the local people were crying, I felt as if I got Nobel Prize for the effort of my students. Students are the mightier powers than any other powers in the world. We have to properly utilize it for the national building activities. If you compare the economic value of ecosystem services from coastal marine systems, deep sea, coastal plankton, seagrass, mangroves, tidal marsh, the mangrove has got the greatest value, economic value, among all other coastal marine systems. So mangroves are very important. So mangroves are very important. You know, the Indian mangroves are globally unique and great. Indians are great. India is great. Indian mangroves are also great. Because mangroves will colonize, in the area of low energy or waves. But in India, mangrove colonization, mangrove colonization occurs in a vast area of the country. Normally, mangrove colonization is difficult in the area with rough waves of high energy. India, we have 4,975 square kilometer, out of which 43% present in Sundarban with high energy coast 5-meter tidal height. The second largest 24% of Indian mangroves present in Gujarat with high energy coast with tidal height of 7 meters. So mangrove colonization in India occurs in 67% of the mangrove area. But these two areas are located in the extreme conditions like wet, humid Sundarban with high biodiversity, Gujarat with arid, dry with low biodiversity. This is the global uniqueness. And Indian mangroves are globally unique with the highest record of biodiversity. 5,746 species. No other countries in the world have recorded so many species to be present in the mangrove ecosystem. If you take finfish alone, 659 species of finfish, crustaceans, 624 species, and insect, 1,422, mollusks, 173 species. So can you identify this specimen? Myself. This is the most beautiful picture ever taken in my lifetime. Even in the marriage album, I am not beautiful. Here I am beautiful because I am working in mangroves. So I traveled all along the country for several times, collected this data. And the mangrove plant genetic paradise of the world, where is it? It is in India. It is in Pitharkanika, Odisha. Mangrove plant genetic paradise of the world. 73% of the Indian mangroves are present in Pitharkanika alone. In the same way, Sundarbans. is the mangrove faunal genetic paradise in the world, because Sundarbans support globally threatened species, tigers, fishing cat, Gangetic dolphin, estuarine crocodile, horseshoe crabs, water monitor lizard, river turtle. Forest in the world. And this is the only mangrove tiger kingdom of the world. Mangroves are increasing in India annually by 0.7%, but 0.4% loss in the world mangroves. India is unique. However, despite the increase in the mangrove forest cover, 40% of the mangrove areas are degrading in India. I identified the reason for the mangrove degradation by comparing the degrading area with the luxuriant mangrove. High salinity leading to low availability of nutrients and therefore poor beneficial bacteria which are required for the growth of mangroves. So can we transform the degrading mangroves into luxuriant one by, reducing the soil salinity, but thereby increasing nutrients and microbial counts? The answer is yes. A restoration technique called canal bank planting for free tidal flushing. It was a dry area. After development of the fishbone model, you see the feeder canal and distribution canal. So by constructing the fishbone model technique, the mangrove can be better conserved. At the same time, since we are increasing the water area, the fish habitat is also increased. Mangrove conservation one site, the another site, the fish production is also increased. So we analyzed what is the resources available in the artificially developed canals. There were twofold higher numbers of finfish and shellfish in the artificial canals than the natural ones. So fish production synergistic with mangrove conservation. So today we have the restorable mangrove area. Potential area for mangrove restoration in India is 15,241 hectares. If you develop this area with mangroves, what will happen? The commercial fish will enhance 16,281 million individuals per year. In the same way, if you develop the mangrove area 15,241 hectare in India, the commercial invertebrates will enhance by 54,452 million individuals every year. That is the advantage. So the mangrove conservation is synergistic with fish production. Finally, I want to caution the mangrove planting often a failure, because only a few species are planted, monocultures, and they are not scientifically following the mangrove planting technique. So therefore, ecological mangrove restoration, planting right species at the right place, suiting to the local ecological condition and hydrological conditions are very, very important. That is the need of the hour. Let us have a vision to see, vigor to act, heart to care, Mother Nature. Conserve mangroves, mangroves will conserve fishes. Protect mangroves, mangroves will protect fishes for the future. So thank you very much for the opportunity.